Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Little Beau Porky, released in 1936. It's the 145th in the series and it's directed by Frank Tashlin. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Gone Collection Volume 4 DVD set. It's also on the Porky Pig 101 DVD set, and there is a high definition version out there, which is what I'm using for this review. Now, in case you haven't seen this one, as it is under copyright, so I can't show you the full thing on YouTube, but essentially, Porky's in the Foreign Legion, and we get warnings of a villain called Ali Mode, and yeah, pretty much Porky is forced to stay behind by the Le Commandant, and Porky has to defend the base against Ali Mode. What you're going to see is a re-edit of the audio commentary I did before I had to take it down due to a request by Warner Brothers. Then you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and then you'll hear some thoughts from my good friend Austin Kelly, who is a self-professed Tashlin-holic. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. So right away with this cartoon, it shows you the Frank's cinematic sensibilities, because if you look at all the shadows, it's just setting up the scene, and it's really good how he does it. And I can't really see any other directors at this studio doing this sort of stuff. It's almost like what they would do in a live action movie, really. And the gags now come absolutely fast and furious. I mean, my goodness, just look at Porky's face, just being so aggressive, and some of these gags just get repeated over and over, like here. Yep. And also pay attention to all the quick cuts that are happening again. Whenever the action gets faster and faster, he does so many of them, and as I would have mentioned in Porky's Poultry Plant, not really many other directors will do so many cuts like that, because it costs a lot of money and takes a lot of time. Look at the animation of the belly of this Commandant, voiced by Billy Bletcher, doing a French accent. And I don't think he gets enough love for all the different accents that he does. You know, he did a German accent in I Love to Singer, and this one, of course, he does a French accent. But I love the faces in this lineup. Just all sorts of riff-raff, and Porky's expression there, of course, is pretty good. And pay close attention to the angles here. See, you got the high up angle there, and you got the low angle there, showing just how miserable he is, and it's just so effective. And when I say Tashlin cinematic, that's exactly what I mean. That's probably the perfect example right there, and he seems to do it in all his cartoons. And here's a good early example of breaking the fourth wall. And Tex Avery was mostly known for that, and here's Frank Tashlin's doing it. Doing his wonderful impression of the Commandant. Now, watching this, I have to say I did feel a bit winded, and I'm pretty sure you can guess why. And I'm pretty sure that was intentional. It's actually hard for me to look at. So those are my original thoughts, and here are some more. Now, first of all, the title itself appears to be a play on Little Bo Peep. So Little Bo Porky, Little Bo Peep, something like that anyway. But it also appears to be a play on the book Beau Guests. I can't speak French or anything like that. But it's basically a 1924 book, and it has had many film adaptations since then as well, which appears to be also the basis of what this short is all about. And I've since learned that this is actually the final short to use the original Looney Tunes intro that had been around since Buddy's Day Out, and so from here on you'll hear the new Looney Tunes intro, which will be more familiar, I guess, for those of you who are fans of Porky in the 1930s. Now, shout out to my good friend Matty Cruz, whose favourite character is Porky Pig. So Matty Cruz, the Toonie Tenor. And this is the final short to be co-edited by Bernard Brown, who had been with the studio since Leon Schlesinger broke away from harmonizing, made his own studio, and from here on, the other co-editor, Trent Brown, will become a full-time editor and will continue doing so solo until his retirement in the 1960s. Oh, and as for the villain, Ali Mode, that's clearly a play on a la mode, where it's basically a cookie term where you put ice cream on top of something. I love me some ice cream, so you can bet I love a la mode all the time. So I've discussed this in a few cartoons recently. It just so happens that in terms of redoing the original commentaries into reviews, I just happen to do a lot of them that involve the Foreign Legion in some way. It's just a really weird coincidence. So definitely check out my reviews for Beau Bosco and Alibaba Bound, and I'm sure there's others out there. I'll figure out. You can cut that bit out, Blue, by the way. But anyway, but essentially, the Foreign Legion was in a lot of movies, radio shows, books at the time. Laurel Hardy did their own Foreign Legion thing. There was quite a few movies, and still more to come after this. It was a very, I don't know if overused is probably the right term, but they definitely did a fair amount of them around this time. But looking at the short itself, I mean, there's just so much to love about this, and my friend Austin Kelly will give his thoughts shortly, but I tell ya, we're both in agreement that this thing just whizzes on by so quickly that sometimes you fail to realize what is even happening. It's an 8-minute short, and yet it feels a lot longer because of just the way it was timed. It's just so much crammed in. I mean, look at the beginning. I did mention in the commentary track about the shadows and such, but looking at it again, even a few years later after doing the original track, it is absolutely incredible. I mean, what a way to start things off. And then you've got humorous elements that are even called back to without you, I guess, realizing it. So the medals of the Commandant's belly, which in itself is just hilarious, and I love the whole belly bounce that happens as he's walking along. You know, that alone is funny, but then it's even funnier when later on, when Porky becomes a Commandant and he's got the same badges, but of course they don't fit his belly. I'm just getting an absolute kick out of that. That is absolutely hilarious. And look at the ragtag group, and just, you know, basically in the Foreign Legion, you had people just wanting to escape their lives and, you know, just join the Foreign Legion, just to fight the good fight. And so this ragtag group definitely looks like the kind of people that would have joined the Foreign Legion at the time. I did notice, though, when Porky Pig is walking behind the Commandant and he's winking at the audience, breaking the fourth wall, I had a look at the background, especially now that I've got the HD version, and there's a picture, there's two posters, and I'm trying to figure out what they say. I mean, if you have an idea of what they say, definitely let me know. And that pig is definitely a nightmare fuel, though, but it's absolutely crazy. But another thing that's interesting about this scene, and I guess this is one of the few cost-cutting bits for Tashlin, and that's the background repeats itself, similar to what would happen in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon later on. Now, going on to the camel gag. Now, this gag is pretty much, a frustration gag is what I call them. And this is the sort of thing you would see even live-action comedians do. I mean, of course, in cartoons, things would get exaggerated, but it's a similar sort of style that these comedians would do, where, you know, they try to do something, and then what they're trying to do, that thing to, reacts not in the way they want to, so they try and correct themselves. It then goes back to normal, and then it overcorrects and all sorts of stuff. But the gag itself can definitely explain it better than I can. But yeah, it's pretty much a frustration gag, and it's quite clear that Tashlin would have taken his inspiration from the silent comedians and, well, now sound comedians like Laurel Hardy. Now, a few other details do come to mind too, like if you look at the goatee, how it just pierces that paper and stops it. You know, the whole character's just standing still, and boom, he just pokes through the paper. But then you have the extra touch, which goes by so quick, you don't even notice it. I mean, again, every time I watch this cartoon, I notice something new. And this time I've noticed how the mustache turns into glasses. I don't know how I missed that before, but apparently I did. And speaking of minor details, I mean, look at the added detail of the Commandant leaving. Basically, his hat falls off, it appears that Tashlin realized, oh, the Commandant's probably too big for that door, but the hat falls off, and he uses the sword to catch the hat. And again, that goes by so quickly, you just don't even notice it, and yet when you do, it's just that nice little detail. Now, another highlight of this short is the montage, and this is clearly coming from some of the movies from around this time, and I don't know if it's from a specific movie, but it's clearly something that Tashlin would have seen while watching the movies and decided to implement it in the short. So, of course, you've got your shot of the bugle player, and then it would be overlaid over the animation of all the soldiers getting ready, but it's so filmic. Yeah, no other director would do that sort of thing, not even Tex Avery. And around this time, you notice that Tashlin would have his characters be round, or based off of spheres. And of course, you've got Porky, but then if you look at Ali Mode, it's a similar sort of thing. And yeah, this is something that Tashlin would do, and he would do the more, I guess, modern style when it comes to backgrounds all the time. Not so much here because it is a desert-themed short, but when it comes to character design, yeah, that design is pretty much what Tashlin was doing around this time. There is a little speech where the Ali Mode says, "I'm a poor little sheep," and I know that speech comes from the Three Little Pigs by Disney, where the big bad wolf pretends to be a sheep, but I do wonder if that actually comes from something else, be it a poem or story or movie or something. If you know the reference to that, definitely let me know, but I'm pretty sure it came from the Three Little Pigs. And I guess with the fight at the end, much like Porky's poultry plant, the action at the end goes by so fast with so many quick cuts, so many things happen. It's just incredible. Although my favorite bit has to be with the camel fighting Ali Mode, just using his humps. Just, again, it's those little details that you just don't realize maybe in the first few watches, but yeah, I could watch this cartoon all the time and find something new, and I still do. So, my good friend Austin Kelly is now going to give you his brief thoughts on this short, and just, I guess, overall thoughts in regards to Tashlin making this kind of short. So, take it away, Austin.
Hello, everybody. Austin Kelly back again with some thoughts on one of my favorite Frank Tashlin cartoons, Little Beau Porky. When I was being taught how to play tennis, my tennis coach always told me that in order to end up fully facing the net by the end of my serve, I need to overly turn my body sideways in order to ultimately rotate outwards and end up where I needed to be. In other words, I had to start out extreme in order to end up being neutral. For some reason, this example came to mind when watching Little Beau Porky, because the extremes that the cartoon goes to end up setting a standard for future Warner cartoons that would never be reached again, but would result in future cartoons being neutral, dumbed down versions by comparison. I totally understand that comparing a tennis serve to a Frank Tashlin film sounds really weird, but let me try to argue my position, so hear me out. Little Beau Porky moves fast. And I mean so fast that gags and story beats are occurring within a second of a cut or a fade out. Not unlike within Tex Avery's cartoons, wherein a gag may last only 12 or 24 frames, but not register in the viewer's mind until much later in their viewing of the film. This is an extremity of storytelling for sure, as the filmmaker risks the audiences totally missing what is happening in the cartoon. But Frank Tashlin, combined with the superb J.S. Semechnik tunes orchestrated by Carl Stalling, keeps things going so fast that eventually you don't even care about what's going on in the moment of the film anymore, since all you care about is where the film wants to go next. This kind of thinking ahead approach was unique to Tashlin's early experiments in speed, and it's something that does not get appreciated as much as it should be. But by doing the more extreme action and choosing to cut quicker or do more in 10, 50, 100 frames of film, Tashlin set a standard that must have made his peers go, wow. So in admiration of his techniques, but wanting to tone it down some, Tashlin's peers made films that had less speed, but the same amount of gags, thereby setting a newer and more relaxed, by comparison, Warner standard. Friz Freleng came along in the later 30s and used his sharp sense of timing to approach gags with the sharpness of Tashlin, but at a much lower speed. Chuck Jones teamed up with Master of Wit Mike Maltese in order to be as funny as Friz, but without as much reliance on timing and more reliance on dialogue and layouts. These and other directors made the Warner standard, but derived it from a place wherein much more extreme and difficult to execute, yet beautiful techniques originated. In cartoons like Little Beau Porky, in which speed and humor are pushed to the absolute limit in order to best create a fantastic film. So thanks to Frank Tashlin for turning outwards away from that tennis net in order to set future directors right towards it.
Thank you, Austin. So, in case you couldn't tell by now, I'm absolutely gushing over this short. See, Poultry Plant to me wasn't a bad short or anything, but you can sort of see, especially in hindsight with these other shorts, that Tashlin was trying things. He was getting into the groove of being a director, but here it's like, yep, I've learned everything I needed to learn in Poultry Plant. Now I'm going to do what I want to do, and this is the end result. And look, I wouldn't say it's his best short, but wow, it's definitely a strong contender with all the fast cuts, the film-like atmosphere, the shadows, and of course the gags. I mean, you can do all that stuff, and if the short's not funny, then what's the big deal? But here, the short's really funny, and it's just amazing to watch. This one definitely gets 8.5 out of 10. It is, yeah, I'm just gushing over it, and heck, after recording this review, I may even watch it again. It's that good. So if you haven't got Porky Pig 101, if you haven't got the Looney Tunes Long Collection Volume 4, which has a disc dedicated to Tashlin, definitely consider picking that up and watching some of these amazing shorts by a master director. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.